Welcome, everyone. I'm currently away on vacation and will be back Wednesday, October 22nd. Today, your host will be Cern Basher. Cern runs his own investment advisory firm called Brilliant Advice.
Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Cernbert. Look at that name.
We are upgrading Herbert's channel this week. Your new host, Cernbert, is here with you for the next week or so. So I'm not sure if all goes well, whether or not I'll be willing to give up this job to Herbert again.
Yeah, no, this would be a lot of fun. And Herbert, who? I don't know who. Let's go.
Yeah, it's kind of like Tesla before Elon, right? There was a couple of other engineers that were there, but they weren't really that relevant to the history of the company.
Yeah, yeah, so much to talk about too. There's just a lot going on. And good morning, Cern.
Good morning. Yeah, so there is. Let's go ahead and get into it here. So we've got some talk about Cybercab production, prioritizing these vehicles. And Tesla Chan here is saying that this may be an unpopular opinion, but Tesla should be all in on autonomy. And of course, Elon responds to simply yes. So I suppose that's good news, Jeff, that we're going to see Cybercab production starting to ramp up soon.
Yeah, and this conversation came up over the last week or so as the affordable vehicles were revealed. And I put this question out on X as well, which was, Tesla's obviously investing billions of dollars to start a whole new production operation, whole new component supplier operation for how the Cybercab is going to be built. This vehicle is going to be built a completely different way. And the actual, I believe the CapEx at peak for this vehicle will be less than other vehicles, but the volume is going to be a lot higher. So they're spending a lot. They're going to spend a lot of money on CapEx, but it's going to be more efficient CapEx. But the question I pose to people is, would you rather have them do that and focus there with started production being imminent? Or would you rather have them start some brand new form factor off of the current serial manufacturing process, which we know is somewhat limited in terms of where it can get to from a cost structure perspective? I think Tesla did the right thing. You can debate this feature or that feature. I'm not saying that 100% of things are perfect. I don't think anything is ever. But with this new vehicle product line that they introduced last week, they're going to be able to better leverage the existing CapEx of the 3Y operation. That's going to bring all those vehicles, all their price points, all their cost points, I should say, their COGS, relatively lower when all those models are running at scale. So this whole post here of about prioritizing Cybercab and started production, that makes a lot of sense for Tesla. I think it makes a lot of sense if you're an investor in Tesla, because every dollar in amount of engineering time into getting Cybercab ready, the return on that investment is going to be much greater purely in the capital efficiency. But as you've modeled, Cern, when these things go out the channel and they go out the market, what these vehicles are actually going to be worth.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And just further to that point, a year ago we saw the Cybercab in the 1010 event. The lead engineer for the Robotaxi group said this weekend that it's so good and way better than it was a year ago as well. So I'm curious to see sort of what has changed in the last year. Do you have any insight on that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like specific part changes, I mean, I'm obviously not going to have direct insight, but this is fairly of following Tesla for so many years, through the engineering phases. Tesla tries to focus on when they show that initial model of a vehicle versus again in production, they try to better the product. They don't really their goal is to not make what they've shown to be the best thing. That was the peak of the product. They want the peak of the product to be the production version of the vehicle. So there's a lot of things we know about this vehicle. The part count being radically reduced from the 3Y baseline. We already seen the curves, from an industrial design perspective. It's a very, it looks futuristic. At the We Robot event, just seeing these things live, it was, I mean, you felt like you were in a different decade when you saw these things whizzing by, no noise coming from the vehicle, doors opening up, and this very spacious seating. You felt like you were from a different decade. So between that point and today, What has Tesla been doing? Tesla's been engineering that prototype into reality. How are these components going to be made upstream at suppliers? How are they going to be the ones that are in the factory? How are they going to be made to hit the right process times, to hit the right yields, and to hit the right price points to get eventually to this sub $30,000 vehicle? And it won't be there on day one. Any new operation that starts up, it's at its least point of efficiency in its early ramp phase. So the cogs of the vehicle will be the most it'll ever be at the start of production. But the way they've engineered this manufacture, it's on a line per se. It's a series of I should say it's a collection of operations that converge. The way they've engineered this, when it is at running at peak velocity, it will be the most efficient Tesla they've ever built, and potentially the most efficient vehicle being produced anywhere in the world. Again, from a price feature value, of course, companies are making a $5,000 car or a $10,000 car. This is, what are the features in the vehicle, and what is the cogs to make that vehicle? That's what I'm referring to, the feature and value piece of it. So in terms of specific changes, I would imagine that, again, they've been focusing on getting components ready from a yield and process time perspective, and just trying to match the industrial design and targets for that. So we'll have to see, as you know, as the new call it, these production worthy version. Maybe there's pilot versions of these being produced this quarter. I mean, if we are still targeting start of production by the end of the year or early next year, it would be very conceivable for them to be doing pilot production in Q4. And typically pilot production could be roadworthy vehicles that could be used maybe by Tesla personnel or so forth. And if they check out and they're really good, they could be sellable, but typically they aren't. So yeah, this is an exciting time. This start of production, this is a major event for Tesla. I'm assuming they're going to have a major launch event. There's going to be some sort of major kind of starting up of the factory. I would love to have a drone view of this thing going from the start of the factory to the end of the line. I think it would look amazing. I don't think Tesla needs to do that at this point. I think they've released a lot of their patents, and yeah, I'm very excited about it. We could spend an hour show on each of the major components with the reaction injection molding and the different substrates that they're using to make this vehicle reality. So I love seeing the crash testing videos and output that Joe Tegmeyer was sharing, that they're really converging on getting to a final design here. So I think takeaways for me are they're prioritizing Cybercab, and start of production is imminent.
Given that we're seeing the crash testing in Giga Texas and also some testing of the Cybercab in Fremont, what does that sort of inform you about the timeline?
Yeah, I mean, they should be crash testing at multiple stages.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, the fact that these are visible and they're out there, and we're seeing more of them being tested on the track, it demonstrates convergence towards a final design. When you're on final design and final process, you go to pilot phase. And when you're in pilot phase, you're basically checking everything out to go to full on start of production. Great.
This next one is interesting, Jeff. This is the standard Model Y, the closed glass roof. Yeah. And it's interesting that Tesla went with a glass roof. Apparently, the Tesla engineer here said that the glass roof is opaque. So even if you remove the textile lining on the inside, you would not see the outside. Further to that, so here's some images from inside. We've got a cloth covering on the roof here. You can't see the glass. And then here's what it looks like on the outside. So it looks like the same sort of Model Y that we're used to seeing. And then here's another view from the inside again. And then Lars says, all glass is not created equal. Remember, the Model Y premium glass is laminated with silver infrared reflective coatings to make it super comfy and reject solar load. The standard is not. Plus, lots of people wanted closed headliner, always trying to listen and improve road noise at the same time. So curious about your thoughts on that, Jeff.
Yeah, I made a couple of comments on it. I mean, this is going to be a bit confusing for consumers, but not the end of the world. This isn't any kind of big issue. So all glass is not created equal. That's absolutely true. So first off, one of my thoughts was to actually just use the same glass from the 3 and Y line and then take the cosmetic rejects and they go into the standard builds, but there probably aren't, and you cover them up with the headliner. There probably aren't enough given the maturity of the 3 and Y. That glass is probably yielding quite well, and there's not enough cosmetic rejects to just take them and move them over to 3 Y line. So they went, and there's various coatings on that glass for UV, and there's also many strengthening steps, which I'm sure are all still occurring for this design. So, and the other thing is, some people say, well, just close the roof and do a metal roof. Well, that's a completely different design from a crash test perspective, from a reliability perspective. Everything changes when you do something like that. So I can see why Tesla wanted to keep the same structural design and then go to a cheaper grade of glass. If the glass is opaque, the glass could have occlusions all over it. Doesn't matter. It's being covered with the headliner. I think the idea was for the car to look very similar externally, and then to have the structural rigidity and similar design as all the other versions of the 3 and the Y, and to not change that. So there must have been enough of a cost reduction from removing the coatings, from allowing cosmetic occlusions and so forth, that the math worked out. And of course, we're on the outside. I mean, Tesla clearly knows what they're paying for these components, what the different options are, and so I'm sure they made the right decision.
Yeah, no, I think you made a really interesting point there. Why go with the glass instead of metal? And Lars simply responded, cost, supply chain, and manufacturing efficiency in our factories. But I think, Jeff, in addition to that, you sort of mentioned that, if you go with something else, you change the sort of structural integrity of the vehicle, and you involve, a whole new crash testing process, right?
It's all new engineering. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting, from a cost perspective, because as a consumer, if you needed to replace that glass roof, it's my understanding it's about $1,600 to maybe $2,500, depending on where you get it done. So, on the surface of it, you would think there would be a massive cost savings for Tesla to replace that glass roof with something else. But again, to your point, that would have involved a whole series of other costs and challenges, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, and a new part. I mean, so a new part to ramp up, and what would have been the cost of that new part? How would the vehicle have looked? I mean, there's a lot of questions to answer. But again, I think the focus of Tesla engineering is, quite frankly, is Cybercab and Optimus.
Yep. Well, shifting gears entirely, this is something I think that's quite interesting. So here's an image of the, Colossus roof. They're putting the word on their macro hard. So Elon tweets, almost there. And then here's what it might look like when it's finished. And so I think there's a lot of sort of confusion out there, Jeff, with people about what is macro hard and what's Elon trying to do here.
Yeah, I think he kind of needs to launch what this effort is. He's not shy from doing, either some form of a launch event, live stream, or I think he needs to do that. I think the scope of this could be quite wide in terms of the scope and limits of the current, like what's happening with text-based LLM and AI. It's going off into different, functions and different API calls, and, can it do this or that? But what if it, these things all of a sudden start creating movies in real time and changing endings? And what if these things start creating real-time environments for gaming, where it's literally being generated as you're gaming? You start changing products that have been in our lives for decades. You change them fundamentally forever by ramping this compute up, making it coherent, and getting the engineering and AI logic behind it with his team and what he's doing. So there's so many industries here that can be disrupted, that And I know you just kind of took the opposite view of Microsoft and macro hard. It's a funny kind of thing, but the scope of it is I don't know where it stops in terms of I don't know where it stops in terms of scope, because once you can render anything in a digital world, and then you see this convergence happening in terms of what Tesla can do in the physical world of manufacturing. And as these two worlds get closer and closer, I mean, could you simulate and design vehicles that much faster? Could you design things like smartphones that much when you know all the inputs and you know everything involved and what's happening, but you want to just make this adjustment or that adjustment, or you want that smartphone to be sub 5 millimeters? What are the different material and structural changes? When you have this terawatt computer running, I don't know what the limits are.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The way that Elon describes it here, so I need to go back a slide, is macro hard project will be profoundly impactful at an immense scale. And he says our goal is to create a company that can do anything short of manufacturing physical objects directly, but will be able to do so indirectly, much like Apple has other companies manufacture their phones. So
Yeah.
I suppose they could have easily called this company, apples and oranges instead of Apple. But I guess the idea is to replicate any company that doesn't physically produce anything, replicate that with this AI-powered software. Is that really the way to think
Yeah.
about this? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, making a phone is a collection of database on hundreds of components, databases on hundreds of components. And what are the specifications? What are the processes? What are the know-how to make those components? And then there's a set of specifications to assemble and test that product. And all these things could be, I mean, you could reverse engineer all of these things. And there's simulations that are involved in making all of these decisions to fabricate all these components. And all these things could be modeled, via AI and so it's just interesting. You don't get there in one day. Like, this isn't happening tomorrow, but there could be iterative steps between where we are today. And if I'm in a company making product, what I want to do is I want to understand what are all those choke points, or what is critical path into, like, why does it take 18 months to go from this concept to a mass production supply chain being ready? And what are all those what are all the critical paths, and how do I meaningfully reduce them? What if these simulations were auto run on these components? What if the DFM work was auto run? What if, I mean, there's so many different opportunities, but again, I think this could touch multimedia, this could touch physical product hardware, this could touch gaming, this could touch search, and there's just so many different areas that are productized today that this could touch. So I mean, we can pontificate for hours, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think we could probably do a whole show on this. It's interesting,
Yeah.
when I think about it, it seems like there's a possibility of really doing away with the entire app store. You just have AI run on a device that produces anything that you want when you need it. You ask AI for the weather, and instead of going to a weather app, it just creates what you want to see on the fly.
Yeah, we talked about this, CERN, on a show a couple of months ago of what would an AI phone be, and my response is when you boot up an Android or an iOS device today versus you boot up that device, if you take a device that was made 6-7 years ago and boot it up, it'll upload to today's software. And you take a device that's built today and boot it up, you put them side by side and you put a little occlusion box over them, you won't know which one is the one that was made in 2025 and which one was the one that was made in 2018. That tells you, that some of these different product categories are not undergoing the same pace of innovation as other product categories. And my thought at that time was, what would the AI smartphone be? It would essentially be one app, and that app could generate the responses or the action of all the other apps on your phone. If it's like I need to book a flight on United. You just tell it, I need to go from here to here on United. Instead of having to boot that app up, it would know how to route that information. So yeah, we're going there. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. Well, speaking of we're going there, Jeff, we've had some exciting developments with FSD just over the weekend. So let's review some of these things. We've got FSD version 14.1.1 rolling out, and so that was a pretty quick update. And so here is maybe difficult to see on the screen here, but we've got FSD supervised 14.1.1, and then JC is saying the fact that this update is rolling out literally only 4 days after the initial launch is a testament to just how hard Omar and the others have been working day and night. So I appreciate that from the test drivers, but also it's a testament to how much work Tesla is doing behind the scenes.
It's a good group. It's a really Tesla's approach to, I mean, you have millions of cars that are running software today of all different hardware types. And you have this small early tester population, which does do a very good job. These releases are coming out at midnight, 2 a.m. They're jumping in their cars and they're testing overnight. They're foregoing their sleep, and their cars are generating a bunch of data. They're generating videos that have useful feedback. I'm sure that they're in DM conversations providing feedback as well. And they should be this group of people should be commended because they're doing a really useful thing. 14.1 FSD 14 looks like to me that it's starting to close the loop now of all the major use cases needed to be a standalone robotaxi. This identification and action now with emergency vehicles, this ability to pick your desired approach to your end location of, are you parking? Are you pulling up to a curb? And of course, it looks like the behavior is continuing to improve. I've said this, that, anytime there's a major new release and there's a new model that's used, I'm sure some of the things that have been smoothed out over the last 6 to 8 months may become unsmooth for a bit. But Tesla that's what these small point releases are for, to go find those issues and fix them. So I know there's a little bit of stuttering in some of that some people are seeing. So, but those are the smaller things. To me, the bigger things are closing these use cases, because now that you have the functionality in the software, now it's just about bug reduction and solving those final bugs. And now these things are here. They're legit. They're real. And it looks like there's a big convergence for Cybertruck coming as well. So I view this is really meeting my expectations for V14 in terms of it closing off these use cases that are necessary for it to be. If your thesis about this company is that they're going to have this standalone, this new channel of selling vehicles, they have build to order, they have build at small levels of inventory, as you and I have talked about, and now there's this new channel of building to a robotaxi fleet. And now these standalone fleets are out there, these vehicles are out there, and they generate so much more income. If that's your theory in the company, what you just saw was a software release that came out that closed and added the use cases required to get there.
Yeah, no, good point. And we've got some really wonderful examples here to go through and highlight some of this. So this is nighttime drive, FSD, and I've just muted the volume here. And this is obviously sped up, but we'll see in a minute here as the driver rounds the corner. And again, this is a faster speed than the car is actually traveling. But we'll see here as it turns this corner, out of nowhere, that pedestrian is dressed in some dark gray there, kind of jumps out and the car stops. The driver indicated that they didn't see the pedestrian. And of course, with us driving FSD in the past, that certainly happened to us before. But this is pretty impressive in the dark of night.
Yeah. FSD for me, CERN, is multiple times. I'm always covering the brake and I always have a hand near the wheel or the yoke, but FSD multiple times has seen something before I've seen it, where I think I may have stopped in time, but it's just nice to know that it's seeing it before I see it and it's reacting, it's slowing down, it's swerving. I love how it swerves around bikers and people walking alongside the road. It'd be easy for it to get, close to them and say, oh, I'm a computer, I'll be able to react. But no, it's actually putting in the right safety offsets for that. So I'm really pleased with how it's operating from a safety perspective.
This is another pretty amazing one, Jeff. This is another car here is in front and intentionally so, and this other car backs up, and FSD makes space for that vehicle, and it backs up as well. That other car moves forward, and FSD moves forward, right? As it's trying to get out of this road. That car in front backs up again, and FSD goes into reverse. And I think this happens several times here in this example, but it's pretty amazing actually how FSD is able to do this. And then finally, towards the end of this video, FSD kind of gives up on this car and tries to find another way out.
Yeah,
now, it happens that this is a dead-end road. There's no other way out, but it's interesting how FSD is trying to problem solve this.
Problem solve it. It's thinking. It's sentient. I mean, there's no other. There's no other, especially when your point of it deciding like, okay, I need to find a different way out. To me, that is just incredible. And that's really, speaking of what Elon was describing this release as being, sentient. And I don't think we're fully there yet. I think we've not seen the extent of what V14 can do. Because it's just a few people and it's just a few drives at this point. I think there's going to be so many more examples of what it's capable of. But again, the early drives that the early adoption group are doing are just phenomenal. Can't be more appreciative of them.
That's right. Here's another example, Jeff, of FSD driving into a parking lot and waiting for this car here to pull out.
Yeah.
And then deciding that that's my spot, and it just takes it.
This behavior is just, yeah. And, these cars are capturing all this data. At some point, it's going to know what location you're at, what's the most efficient parking spot relative to the door that you've navigated to, the business you've navigated to. What's the most efficient spot? And it's going to start, keeping all that in mind too. So it's perfectly, centering these things in the parking space. It's just this goes back to one of Elon's tenet, which is all input is error. And how do you remove input?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just going to bring this back here. This is from Zach. So he's done 7 drives with FSD 14.1.1, and he says here's some of his comments. He says everything version 14.1 did and more. Exactly the same great performance as expected, but better. He says, all my drives were zero intervention around Los Angeles tonight. Did really well in parking garages, and we have a video of that coming up. He says it circles until it finds a spot and backs right in. Did a few loops in and out of the mall garage, and it was fantastic.
It's amazing.
He says it has the added benefit of some better lane discipline on highway and lack of brake stutter, which some reported. He says, didn't see any tonight at all. I didn't see too much on the previous build, but it was there. And then he says it had a sentient moment where it saw a group of 100 plus cyclists taking over a street, and without even hesitating, it took a different way. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
He says it's exactly what a human would want to do if there was 100 cyclists in your pathway, and you knew that they were going to continue to block your way for potentially a period of time.
Yeah. Now, some of these things you're going to be, you have this software in your vehicle. All of us are going to have it. And, some things you're going to be like, okay, this is some of the things may be by chance, but some of the things may be, I would say most things are going to be legit. This thing is acting sentient. You have a supercomputer and you have a redundant supercomputer in your vehicle, and you've got we know the largest training model and the largest number of, at Cortex, and you've got the most number of parameters being run in terms of real-time compute in any vehicle out there. So you have you own a Tesla, you own any Tesla that is built, after, whatever time period, even hardware 3 and hardware 4, you've got a supercomputer in your vehicle. So I'm going to be very interested to see this release go wide, and I'm going to be very interested to see if Tesla adds any more features throughout the V14 cycle. This is a lot what they've added already.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And just to highlight here again some final thoughts from Zach. He says this build and V14.1 are awesome at merges, really noticeably improved, and drives like a human, and even drives better than most. He says V14.1 was great, but V14.1.1 adds the polish it needed to make it smoother around the edges. He said really solid performance tonight. He says really good lane discipline on highway and hurry mode. It does not camp in the left lane and makes really good lane choices, plus the selection to get around people. When nobody is around, it likes to be in the number 2 lane, which is the proper way to do it. And then finally, he says, I love how it moves close to the ticket machine in garages. Really nice touch, and it pulls up to the perfect spot where you can reach and grab the ticket. We'll test drive some drive-throughs and other scenarios tomorrow. So Jeff, here's an example of that so if we just start at the beginning, he's inside a garage, and you can see it pulls up to the ticket booth and lets him out. It all happens very quickly in this video, but I'll just go back there again. This is the kind of the pertinent part of this video, is pulling up to this ticket booth, and the car moves a little bit closer to it so he can reach out and grab the ticket. Although I guess he's on the way out. In this case, it's probably not really grabbing anything, maybe inserting the ticket inside the machine, perhaps. It doesn't actually show that part, but
yeah, but just to navigate inside of a garage, I mean, obviously there's no GPS. This is this computer that is just thinking for itself and doing real-time compute in terms of what are the right decisions to get to navigate out of a garage. I don't know about you, I get turned around in garages sometimes of like, should I turn left to exit? Should I turn right to park? Sometimes the signs are gone. And so I'll be interested. So this is one thing though, when we get to more volume users of V14,
yeah.
I love that Zach did this test case. And I imagine if 100 people did this test case, if we get 100 for 100 kind of yield, I mean, we're just off to the races. I would imagine that there's going to be some difficulties in some parking garages, and it's just going to have to continue to get better and better. But it's such a great use case to run.
It really is. It really is. And here's the example of the cyclist. Now, it's a little hard to see here. Let's see if we go back. Let's pause the video. So here on the road is a whole group of cyclists in this right lane, and this is where the car is in this lane here. And instead of going straight as it's planned to do, it decides to get in the left lane and make a turn at the light here. In this video, it's a little difficult to see all the cyclists, but if you look at the visualization, you can see it looks like there's a number of people standing on the road here.
Yeah.
And so here's the vehicle pulling around that group, and you can see all the cyclists here in the lane. Lets them go with the green light. So normally the vehicle would have just gone straight through there, and it decides to take this left lane and wait at this red light for an opportunity now to take some side streets.
Yeah. This is, you remember when the first time you used Google Maps and it started rerouting for traffic, you're like, wow, this is pretty special. And now this is rerouting this is AI rerouting, and I'm sure it's getting cues from Google Maps as well in terms of what's the fastest route to take. But it looks like it's also making real-time decisions inside of the vehicle. The kind of, again, this whole least common, this path of least resistance approach.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting too, Jeff, as we get a fleet robotaxi out there, and there can be some fleet learning. So you could have a robotaxi that's a block or two ahead of you encountering this issue. And I suppose perhaps there could be some communication back to other vehicles following that. Hey, we've seen IP on this. We've seen intelligence on this, and I think it's coming. And when the vehicle decides to remove itself from congestion, what else is it doing? It's reducing the probability of an incident, of a crash. So there's a lot that goes on in terms of it being getting to 10 times safer than a human. It's just not of avoiding crashes. What if you start avoiding situations that
could promote incidents. Like, what if it starts to be able to know that? So it just, I mean, where does this stop?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting situation too with the cyclists. As a cyclist, I understand this, that if you have a group of cyclists on the road, you're backing up traffic behind you. So to the extent that you can remove yourself as a motorist and remove yourself from that, then this results in less backup behind those cyclists and probably less people that are going to be upset by having the road blocked in front of them. So that's another situation of sort of proactively avoiding a situation that could kind of become a real problem if enough cars stayed on that road.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's another one, Jeff. This one's really interesting, of a vehicle approaching Costco. And we all know that parking in a Costco parking lot on a weekend can be one of the most difficult things that a human can encounter in 2025, finding a parking spot. And so this is an example here of actually the car looking for a parking spot. And in this case, I think it takes about 20 minutes. Right. And it just drives around and around looking for a place to park. And again, this is the same challenge for any human driver, right?
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do on a weekend. It's kind of a competitive sport to find a parking spot at Costco. So I'm just going to fast forward a little bit through this video. It's continuing to look for spots. And then, there's apparently a few examples where, according to the driver, that, he might have been more aggressive, or if you follow somebody with a cart going to their car, you know that they're going to be vacating that spot, and you can kind of sit there and wait for them to leave. In this case, FSD doesn't do that. It actually waits for a vacant spot. So I think here's the example here where it actually is able to locate a spot and actually park. This is pretty impressive, in my opinion, that FSD is able to do this. It's about 20 minutes of circling the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. I know this is a week old, and this is just not a week old. It's a couple days old, and it's just getting out there. But I can't imagine if you're in any form of mainstream media or any kind of tech media, and you're seeing this happen now. You're seeing the nuances of what we're describing in this vehicle and what's been in this video, and what we're curating here. I don't know how you don't just, like, I don't know why this to me should be like plastered in every single, like, this should be a topic on any kind of fintech or major tech news show. I mean, this is amazing. This is unbelievable that we have physical real world AI right now, and it's available to go buy. Someone can go today and go buy a Tesla. Now, V14 isn't down in every car yet, but maybe this week it will be.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting too. Elon mentions, he says, in the near future, your Tesla will drop you off at the store entrance and then go find a parking spot. Right. Yeah. So when you're ready to exit the store, just tap summon on your phone and the car will come to you. Right. And when you go into the store, you tap banish and it goes and parks. And so you no longer care if the car is circling around the parking lot for 10 or 15 minutes. It's not really relevant to you if you're inside Costco for 30 minutes. Right. The car now deals with that hassle on its own, which is a pretty big plus. A lot of people, including myself, avoid shopping on the weekends to the extent possible because of the hassle of fighting with the crowds.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, I think it's also fair to say if you're on the V13 series now, there are situations where your car can just and it just says, "Hey, take over." So I'm wondering if that number of situations now has been meaningfully reduced, where there's no, like, hey, I know V14 is still supervised, but I wonder if that situation of, like, hey, I just can't, I'm not going to complete this turn, just take over. Like, especially in parking lot situations or getting in and out of a garage, I've seen that. I'm wondering if that's been meaningfully reduced. It looks like it has been.
It looks like it has been. And then finally, Jeff, the other, this is a small item, the auto steer icon has been removed. It now just says, and this is very small to see here, at least on our screen, it now just says self-driving instead of showing the icon. And Ashok says, had we continued to use it, it'd be like the floppy disk icon for the save function, which, by the way, I'm checking the various software programs I have, and we still use the floppy disk icon as the, to denote saving on a computer. So
Well, at some point, this is going to be it's going to be defaulted. I mean, you buy a Cybercab, it's always going to be in self-driving, right? So at some point, that icon just goes away.
it's always going to be self-driving. That's right. So you don't need an icon to show it. You actually might need an icon to show that you need some human intervention, but
Correct.
that would be few and far between. And certainly with a Cybercab, no human interventions necessary or even possible.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, this is an exciting time. It looks like V14 is a meaningful jump in terms of closing those use cases. And more importantly, this increased 10x parameter count. It looks like the vehicle is acting. I don't even want to say it's almost, to me, it's a little bit of a shot at to call it more human like. It's more computer. It looks like it's making very good decisions and it's thinking for itself real time.
Yeah, I think it's highly likely, Jeff, that we see the car make decisions that'll be difficult actually for humans to make.
Yeah, I think we're at that crossroads right now.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, those were some nice version 14 updates. I'm sure this week we'll see many more. That brings us to the end of this show, Jeff. Is it any closing thoughts from you?
No, I mean, it's been a big week for Tesla with the release of V14, and it looks like there's some very strong commentary about the Cybercab, and of course, last week with the release of the new standard model vehicles, you can just see it's just picking up in terms of all the activity inside of this company. And we haven't even gotten to an Optimus conversation yet. Maybe we'll do that on a follow-up show. But just you can just see the pace of activity picking up. It looks like the rate of innovation is picking up, and we're in between this huge delivery beat at the end of that was announced in the first couple of days of October in earnings coming up next week. So this is a very interesting time for Tesla and investors and people that are out of it or it's decision time. And I can't imagine what's coming up, in the earnings call. They just blow out energy numbers, blow out vehicle shipment numbers. You made a great post about inventory, which means a blowout cash view. And I just can't imagine Elon jumping on that call and not having great things to say about the quarter, but also really just great things about Tesla's future and where he sees it going, especially 2 weeks ahead of the shareholder meeting. So this is a very exciting time for Tesla. It's a very exciting time for tech, and just it's fun to watch it, comment on it, and see everything that's happening.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate, aren't we, to sort of be able to have a front row seat in all this in real
Great time to be alive.
Yeah. Well, on our next show, we are going to talk about sort of some of the analysts' views that are coming out, and we're also going to talk about Optimus. But we'll leave it there for this show. Jeff, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Yep. Speak soon.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.